Should have just broken just before I landed. It was a real thud. That was the only time I would touch anything solid, because I suddenly found I was in a new body that didn't quite touch the ground.
You were floating.
I was floating, apparently, because when I wanted to move, I was moving without contacting the ground anywhere.
Did you walk?
I went through the motions. Yeah. My legs did. I found that instantly, if I decided to go down this great valley in which I landed, I was already going before I finished the desire. That was one of the amazing things. The thought that the mind of heaven, Christ's mind, works with a speed unknown on earth. I would say it was faster than the light. It can be anywhere at any time, obviously, according to the scriptures. And so, when I decided I'd go take a look at my paradise, I was already doing it. And I found that when I came up to trees, I went right through them, and grasses went right through them. I could kick the flowers, they wouldn't move at all. They just went right through my legs, staying untouched.
Were you a spirit then, without a body?
I had a spirit body. Now, I can't tell you what a spirit body is, except that it was identically the same size and shape as the one you're seeing here, but no Mars or scars. And I got a lot of Mars and scars. It was absolutely without weight, without pain, without any sensation other than total ecstasy. And the minute I would will it to do something, unlike down here, it was doing it before I could finish willing. And then is when I exclaimed, Jesus, tell me about this body. And then he began a series of statements which were to be kept up all the time I was in paradise.
Did you see anyone now, or was this just...
No, I'll tell you in a minute why.
Okay.
He answered my question, every one, first of all prefacing it, didn't you read my book? Didn't you read my book? And finally, after the 13th or 1300th question, you don't know up there, everything is so fast, I said, but Jesus, why do you ask, didn't I read your book? And he said, my son, I'm impressing upon you that I put in my book everything that any of my children would ever need to know.
Oh my.
He said, it's all there whether you found it or not. Well, to tell the experience in paradise, well, of course I didn't know where it was. You asked me that. The question then immediately was posed by my mind, which was his mind. The two minds are connected, and I said, Jesus, you seem to be in me. I'm thinking with your mind, apparently, because it's the speed of light. It's not in any language that I ever heard. And he said, no, my son, I put it in my book. I said, you were speaking in my heavenly language. You have the body that I planned and told you about would be a celestial body, as the King James calls it here. And he said, I am in you, you are in me. And he said, didn't you read my book? I told the disciples that they were in me, I was in them, and we're one with the Father.
John 17.
John 17, and other places too. And I said, well, I realize it now. He said, good, my love. He wasn't speaking English. I have to just interpret. And at one point I said, didn't I used to speak English? That was the one thing that I did remember for a second. He put it on my mind because he wanted me to ask it. And I said, why don't you use English? And he said, my son, do you believe that I would use a cursed language in heaven to communicate with my children? Do you not realize that all languages on the earth are the result of the curse? Therefore, I talk to you mind to mind in my heavenly language. But he said the main reason is Satan cannot eavesdrop upon my heavenly language.
That settles it right there.
Right there.
We've always wondered and believed that when we spoke in our heavenly language, Satan couldn't tune in.
Well, I tell you, when I came back and realized what he'd said, and of course I'd been dubious. I was raised in a denomination that wasn't tongue talkers. I never heard them talk until your program here several years ago. Never. Turned on one night and somebody's doing a silly thing. And then I asked Jesus, what is this silly language? And sure enough, I got it. But the point is, it's mind to mind, it's faster than the speed of light. And he said, furthermore, there are no errors in my language.
What else did you ask him? You were a very curious boy, weren't you?
I just asked him, I suppose, a million questions because they go that fast. I was aware immediately of music. Now, I had a musical background, and that's one reason I think he did this for me. You see, other people having a life after death, celestial experience, will be shown other things because there's so much. But he wanted to show me the things that I would realize when I came back, and I didn't know I would be identifiable. The music in heaven is so far superior to any earthly music that there's no description possible. It is not, of course, carried on airwaves since there's no air up there. It's not made by vocal cords since there's no mechanical chords needed. You do it with your mind. You sing with your body up there.
Oh my.
See, it has no beat because heaven is in eternity where there is no time, and beat is a measure of time. So all music on earth, you know, is a beat, beat, beat. Up there it flows. And I said, Jesus, where is this music flowing from? And he said, my son, didn't you read the book? And I said, what did I miss this time? And he said, I told you in my book that I created everything. Everything came out of me. Without me is nothing. And therefore the music you hear had to come out of me, and it originates at my throne. And that was the time when a funny thing happened. I lifted up my elbow to my ear because he put it on my mind. I didn't know this, you see. That's the way Jesus does. He puts things on our mind all the time. We don't give him credit until we look back.
True.
And I thought, uh-oh, he says that all music is coming from him, and therefore, since we're made out of the same thing, him, then maybe my arm is singing. See, that's why he put. So I put it up here, and sure enough, it was singing this beautiful, whatever it is up there. It's not a song, it's not a sonata, it's not a symphony. It just flows. See,
did it sound like anything on earth? Is there anything you can compare it to, even remotely?
When people sing in tongues sometime in a huge auditorium.
That's as close to it. When they sing in tongues, there is no beat. You'll notice that. That's the one thing.
Auditorium.
But of course, it's still airborne.
Yeah.
It still is the vibration of a tongue and a throat.
Yeah.
Whereas up there, it's the vibration of God.
Ooh.
He's just strumming his electrons. And of course, the scientists have now proved it. I was just reading a scientific report 2 years ago that the music of the spheres,
right. And
every single electron in the world gives off a sound. And of course these touch telephones now illustrate it to anybody that doesn't believe it.
The stars sing. Did you know that? They discovered that stars each have a different tone, and they're all